You're standing there mid-conversation, smiling, nodding, completely present. You recognize their face instantly. You even remember what they told you last time. Something about their work, a small detail about their life, maybe even the way they laughed. And then it happens. Their name should be right there. But it's not. So you hesitate for a split second, hoping it comes back. You replay the moment you met them. You search your mind quietly while still trying to stay engaged. And on the outside, everything looks normal. But inside, there's that small, familiar frustration. It makes you wonder, why does this keep happening? Because it's not like you're forgetful. You remember things that actually matter. Conversations, emotions, tiny details most people overlook. So why do names, something so simple, seem to slip away so easily? There's a reason for this. And it's not what most people think. We're taught, almost without questioning it, that remembering someone's name is a sign of respect. That if you forget it, it must mean you weren't paying attention. Or worse, that you didn't care enough. But that belief is more social than it is psychological. Because your brain doesn't actually treat names as meaningful information. Names are labels, abstract, often repeated across different people, and not deeply tied to emotion or context. So unless something reinforces them, they don't naturally stick. What does stick is meaning, how someone made you feel, the tone of their voice, the story they shared, the subtle details that gave you a sense of who they are. So if your mind holds onto those things instead of a simple label, it doesn't mean you're careless. It might mean your attention is wired to value depth over surface. You tend to remember people in a different way than most, not by what they're called, but by how they felt to be around. You might forget a name within minutes, but you remember the warmth in their voice, the way their eyes lit up when they talked about something they loved, or the quiet pause before they answered a question. Those details stay with you. They feel real, because your mind leans toward meaning, not labels. In psychology, there's a simple idea. The deeper you process something, the more likely you are to remember it. But deep doesn't mean everything. It means what feels significant to you. And names, most of the time, are just surface-level sounds. They don't carry emotion on their own. So while someone else is repeating a name in their head, trying to lock it in, you're already paying attention to something else. Something more human. And in that quiet trade-off, the name fades. But the person doesn't. When you meet someone, your attention doesn't go to their name first. It goes to something less obvious, but more human. You notice their tone, their body language, the small shifts in their expression. You pick up on whether they seem open, guarded, excited, or unsure. Even in a simple conversation, part of your mind is quietly reading between the lines. And because of that, you're often fully there in a way most people aren't. You're not rehearsing what to say next. You're not looping their name over and over just to remember it. You're actually with them, but attention is limited. Whatever you focus on deeply, something else gets less space. And in your case, the label, the name, becomes secondary. It passes by quickly while your mind locks onto the feeling of the interaction instead. That's why later you can recall the entire vibe of a moment, but not the one word attached to it. And interestingly, this way of paying attention often makes you a better listener. But it also comes with a hidden cost. Names are actually one of the most fragile types of memory. They don't come with built-in meaning, and they don't stay unless they're reinforced. There's a simple concept behind this called encoding. It just means how your brain stores information in the first place. And for something to stick, it usually needs repetition, attention, or a strong connection. But think about how names usually happen. Someone says it once, maybe twice, and then the conversation moves on. There's no repetition, no emotional weight, nothing for your brain to really hold on to. So it fades. Not because you're careless, but because it was never fully stored to begin with. Meanwhile, everything else about that moment, what was said, how it felt, the atmosphere, gets encoded more deeply without you even trying. That's why later you can remember the entire interaction clearly, just not the name attached to it. And when you see it this way, it starts to make a lot more sense. For some of you, it's not really about memory at all. It's about the little pressure that builds up when you're expected to remember. You meet someone, your mind knows you should recall their name, and suddenly that tiny expectation feels heavier than it really is. Your thoughts scramble, and the name slips further away. It's almost ironic. Trying too hard to remember can actually make it harder. This isn't a flaw. It's just how attention and stress interact in the moment. Your brain prioritizes keeping the conversation smooth, reading social cues, and staying present over pulling up a single word. So if you blank on a name while everything else feels clear, it's not failure. It's your mind quietly balancing multiple tasks at once. And knowing this can bring a sense of relief. You're not careless or inattentive. You're simply human, navigating social moments with thoughtfulness. Your brain is constantly deciding what to keep and what to let go. It doesn't treat every detail equally. It filters based on what feels meaningful, relevant, or emotionally significant. Names on their own often don't pass this filter. They're just labels, sounds without much context. Meanwhile, everything that carries emotion, how someone made you feel, what you learned about them, the energy of the moment, gets prioritized and stored more deeply. This filtering process is why you might forget a name instantly but remember a conversation, a laugh, or even a tiny gesture from that same person. It's not a flaw in your memory. It's your brain focusing on what it deems most important for connection and understanding. So in a way, forgetting names is a byproduct of paying attention to the things that truly matter, letting your mind store depth over surface. Even though forgetting names comes from how your brain naturally prioritizes meaning, there can still be small consequences in social situations. Sometimes people may feel overlooked or forgotten, even when you remember everything else about them. Their reaction isn't a judgment on you, it's just how the human mind works. At the same time, you're navigating these moments with care. You notice, you listen, you connect, and often your attention to depth makes interactions richer than those who only remember labels. Acknowledging this balance helps both sides. You understand why names slip, and others can see your presence and thoughtfulness beyond a single word. It's a gentle realism. It's just part of being human, navigating memory, attention, and relationships together. Picture walking into a room filled with familiar faces. You see the way someone tilts their head when they laugh, the sparkle in another's eyes when they tell a story. You greet them warmly, and they smile back, but the name, it escapes you for just a moment. Later, you're sitting at a coffee shop, listening to a friend recount a small triumph. You remember every detail of their excitement, the rise and fall of their voice, the way their hands move, the faint scent of coffee lingering in the air. But their name doesn't surface right away. Or think about a casual gathering, where people circle around, sharing little updates about their lives. You catch glimpses of stories, jokes, subtle gestures, and tiny expressions that tell you who they are. You might not recall every label, but you absorb the rhythm, the energy, the humanity in the room. In these moments, you're fully present, experiencing people on a level deeper than words. For a long time, forgetting names might have felt like a weakness, a small slip that made you doubt yourself. But what if it's actually a sign of how your mind works differently, and perhaps even more deeply? Your brain isn't failing to remember names. It's choosing to prioritize meaning, emotion, and connection over labels. You remember the essence of people, their stories, the way they move through a room, the little details that others might overlook. That's a kind of intelligence that goes beyond rote memorization. This way of experiencing the world allows you to form richer impressions, notice subtleties in interactions, and connect on levels that names alone can't reach. What seems like a simple lapse is really a reflection of depth, attentiveness, and empathy. So the next time a name slips your mind, remember, your brain is wired to remember people in a way that truly matters. This isn't a flaw, it's a quiet, human strength. If you've ever felt like your brain remembers everything except names, you're not alone, and now you can see it in a new light. There's another pattern most people don't notice about how deeply thoughtful minds process the world, and it changes the way we understand attention, memory, and connection. If you want to explore that next layer, make sure to subscribe and click on the next video, because the way we experience people goes far beyond what we can put into words. You'll discover insights that make everyday interactions feel richer, more vivid, and more meaningful. And as you watch, notice how your own mind navigates these little patterns. Sometimes quietly, sometimes in ways that surprise even you.